So next in chapter 7, we're going to look at how everything connects to everything. Our minds are pretty amazing. They can join dots together, connect thoughts with each other, and pull in images, emotions, physical sensations, memories, urges, all kinds of things, and create whole stories going on inside of us. And that can be a very useful ability. It's one of our incredible strengths as humans. It allows us to plan. It allows us to invent, to problem solve, to imagine, to create all kinds of stuff. But sometimes it's not so helpful, particularly when our minds are looping in a whole lot of thoughts about the past or projecting into the future. When our minds can pull us back into the past, we can find ourselves going over and over events that previously happened and having regrets about things, would have, could have, should have, and we can find ourselves sometimes getting a little bit down in response to that, and it's not always so helpful. Sometimes our minds can zoom forward into the future and start connecting things, making up all kinds of stories about how things are going to go, and we can get ourselves quite anxious. Again, these can be useful abilities, but if we're not watching and noticing that it's happening, it can start to affect our mood. You might notice when you've been listening to me just now that your mind may have wandered off somewhere else. It might have connected a few dots. Did you notice at any point perhaps that your mood shifted even just slightly? It may be that your mind took you somewhere and your mood lifted a little or sank a little depending on what was connecting. What can be helpful for this, so that we can use this ability that we have constructively, is to get really good at coming back to the here and now. So that if our minds are starting to yank us away and take us into territory that's affecting how we feel in a way that may not be so productive for what we're trying to accomplish, we can notice it and we can bring it back. So I'd like to invite you to just try something with me for a moment now, if you would. Just see if you can take a couple of deep breaths. Just consciously watching your breathing as you do. Just taking a couple of deep breaths and following your breath with your mind. Bringing your full attention to your mind. You might notice as you're doing that your mind doesn't want to stay on your breath, that it wants to pull away. But when you're doing that, if you can just consciously disconnect your mind from wherever it went to and patiently bring it back, kindly and patiently bring it back to what you were focusing on, in this case your breath, then you can get pretty good at being able to notice it, discover it, and interrupt it when your mind is taking over like that and running off with you. So to be able to get good at this, we need to practice it a bit. You might find that it would be useful to set, for example, a timer so that you do it a couple of times every day. Just set a timer to remind yourself, and just stop when the timer goes off and take a couple of those conscious breaths. The other thing you can do is you can make a decision to practice noticing your breath while you're doing some really mundane task. Walking, if it's something you do every day, walking the dog maybe, or walking to work. Driving is a good time to actually just be noticing your breath. You might find doing dishes or chopping vegetables might be a time. So just anything that's an activity you do frequently, brushing your teeth maybe, just making a decision to consciously bring your full attention to that activity or to your breath while you're doing it, and notice what your mind is doing. Notice if your mind has wandered off, and just kindly and gently bring it back.